Welcome back to a G&T Sips and Giggles podcast where we serve up equal parts of deep chat and absolute nonsense. I'm Glenn.
And I'm Tina Legs Tantrum. Tonight we're talking about near-death experiences.
Ooh.
That moment when you're knocking on heaven's door or hell's trapdoor, depending on how you lived.
Yes, near-death experiences, or as we'll probably refer to them going forward, are NDEs, near-death experiences. See what we did there? We just shortened them.
We did.
Basically, this is where your heart clocks out and your brain's like, nope, not yet. I want to have a wee peek at who's in the VIP list upstairs, or so they say.
Tunnels, lights, great grannies with attitude. It's a cosmic cabaret. We're chatting about the science, the spirituality, and what it's all about. And plenty of giggles.
Yes, so stick around, grab your favorite drink. Tina's probably got glitter in hers, and let's
Great.
dive in. Oh, there we go. Look, for the benefit of our listeners who aren't watching us, Tina has the biggest fishbowl of gin.
May I say it's my first one since early November.
Oh well, enjoy. But yes, so Tina, let's dive in. Ever nearly gone, Tina?
Oh, listen, honey, I've died on stage more times than I can count. Thank God for sequence and a quick encore.
Naturally, right. So settle down out there and let's get started. Well, that was an introduction there, Miss Legs. Well, how have you been? It has been 4 whole weeks since we have actually sat down and recorded an actual episode.
1 hole, 2 hole, 3, 4 hole. I thought you were going to burst into the all brand new, all the kids are talking about and going mad about it, and everything on TikTok, YouTube, and Amazon. The abracadabra, I'm a na na na.
Lady Gaga. Yeah.
Honest to almighty goodness. Yes, it's been a good few weeks from we've got together. But I want to also ask the listeners because I don't want and our new watchers,
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are on YouTube.
our tiny baby stalkers who haven't fallen in love with us yet because we're only used to our voices, you see. And then they're actually thinking to themselves, is Tina as pretty as she sounds? Glenn is butch looking as he comes across. As
I
he is
mean,
as he is masculine as deep melon tones, you know? And I'm looking and
yes.
I'm, well, let you make your own mind up on that one. We're about to talk about creepy things here.
Yes. So I tell you what it was. The
Okay,
reason
what
I wanted
happened?
to have a conversation with you about near-death experiences
Mhm.
and flirting with the afterlife is so a couple of weeks ago it got
Yeah.
really cold outside and the temperatures dropped and there was a load of ice out the back. Now I have like an old school decking, but it's not like there's not a lot of grip on it. It's like old
Mhm.
school, there's proper ridges and stuff in it. So anyway, I was going out to the bin and as you do, I had like a pair of sliders on and I was heading out the back garden and as soon as I went out, bam, hit the deck, bruised my knee. And Tina, I was having what I can only describe as an outer body experience. I dropped
Really?
in slow motion, like I nearly died, dead.
I'm sorry for laughing. But do you know something from when I was a wee girl? This is a gospel truth. Did you see if I saw anybody slip, fall, trip over? I literally burst out laughing. And it's not necessarily that I find it funny. It's a nervous knee-jerk reaction
Mm.
when I see somebody falling because you see that. Go ahead, tell me more, tell me more. So you were going out to the bin,
I was going to the bin,
out to the
slipped,
back garden.
fell, hit my knee. Now, they say that whenever you're sort of having like a near death experience, that your
Outer
entire
body.
life
Mm.
flashes before your eyes and everything goes into slow mo.
Yeah.
Honestly, as quick as it happened, it felt like it was going on for about 40 hours. I was like, rubbish everywhere.
Before you hit the ground, you had 10 decades of the rosary done.
Oh God, yeah. Uh-huh.
Mhm,
Uh-huh.
mhm.
But here, what about you? Have you had any sort of traumatic near-death experiences?
Have a what? I was born and reared in a Falls Road, love. Do you know what I mean? And I come up through the troubles. There's so many to go. There's quite a lot actually.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you one of the ones that was this actually is a true story. So I was about 10 or 11, and there was me, my brother Tony, and my brother Sean were in the house. Sean was upstairs, and Tony and I were watching this film. We were off school. I don't know why. All of a sudden, mummy went out the back to get messages. And the next thing was I could hear this noise. We were watching this film, and I will never forget it, called Floods of Fear. I don't know why that when you have a moment, there's a part of your experience, this outer body fear of death, like you experienced. You really thought, like, oh my God, is this the end? Is this how I go? That film, and I can tell you the scene that my life stopped was because I remember looking at the TV. Tony was shouting at me, go and see what's going on. I opened the living room door and I popped my head up the stairs, and the flames were shooting from the landing,
My
thick,
goodness.
thick black smoke.
Wow.
And this all happened within 5 minutes.
Wow.
Now, I looked at our Tony and I was like, that place is on fire. And he knew by the way that I reacted that it was. So then, what do you hear? I had no shoes on. And my mummy had these clumpy wee, like half a wooden heel. Now, I was a heavy set child, and nobody in our street had a phone all them years ago. The only one was the Lindsays up in number 10. And my mum was a size 5. I was a big fat kid. I had to squeeze my gorgeous big giant fat feet because it was lashing out of the heavens into those shoes, beat up the street, bang on the door. Mr. Lindsay, God rest him, he came out and he was all, what's wrong? What's wrong? I went, the house is on fire. And I remember I stood in the hallway, and Tony was at the living room door, and we didn't know where my other brother was, Sean, and the house was on fire. And I just thought, in that moment, we're all going to die. I don't remember what happened after that. I just remember fire brigades. I remember my mum. It was terrible, collapsing in the street and everything. And that was the closest I will ever remember where I went from normality
Mhm.
to fear, like the worst fear, like that, you know? And I just think that in a moment, I was like, what? Like my life literally stopped.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, they
back in the
say
days.
they say that, I mean, and we will get to this later on, but they say that,
Yeah.
everybody has a guardian angel. Maybe that was
Mm,
it. Maybe that there was
mm,
somebody that was looking over you. And again, you know me, I'm not the most spiritualist person, but
I am.
I know you are. But
Mm,
they say that there are people looking out for you. So there was perhaps
yeah.
maybe somebody that was hovering about
Hmm.
you, to sort of
Hmm.
to bring your attention to the fact that the place
Yes.
was on fire. That's crazy. I'm
My
glad no
wee
one was
granny.
hurt.
I do believe my wee granny Bose has never left my side because I never got to meet her. She died she was 43.
Oh,
Mhm.
goodness. We should also preface this episode, by the way. This is obviously a serious topic because, near death experiences is kind of
Well,
serious, right? But we
well,
just
it
want
is
to try
kind
and
of.
keep it light and full of heart.
Yeah. Well, we will, but at the same time, I mean, what happened after that was just pure trauma because we had nowhere to live, and then we had to go and live somewhere else, and we had to go and do this, and we had to go and do that, and all. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I remember, and I mean, we had to leave the house, we had to find somewhere else to live, but I don't remember most of that. Just
Mhm.
what happened that day, and how our lives went from being really, really normal to almost dying.
Jeez.
But luckily, everybody survived.
Well, that's
Luckily,
good.
everybody survived.
And I think I remember you telling me that you lost all your childhood photos and all as well in that fire, didn't you? Like it
Everything,
was
everything. Yeah, my mum.
nuts.
The one thing that broke her wee heart was and mummy used to keep all the photographs in cornflakes boxes,
Mhm.
and that's where the fire started in her
Oh,
room, and
nightmare.
everything was destroyed. And I remember in the street screaming, "Grab the photos, get the photos!" But firemen came out and said, "There's none left. We're done."
Oh, that's
And
really
that was the
sad.
very, very sad part. So, and that once that's gone, that's gone. So, how do we cheer this up?
Right. Well, let's
We-
start first of all. Let's let's
okay.
let's take a step back and let's actually just talk about what the actual term is officially said. What did the people in the lab coats actually say about
Right.
nearly
Okay.
cashing in on your life? So Near-death experiences, or NDEs. So these they have fascinated scientists and spiritual leaders and those who have lived through them for years and years and years. Some people describe having this feeling of like floating above their own bodies, or
Mhm.
watching doctors bring them back to life when they're in surgery. Perhaps maybe they've died. Other
Mhm.
people recall like an overwhelming sense of peace. Some describe tunnels of light, or
Yeah.
even like a conversation with like a loved one that's no longer been
Mhm.
around, or
Mhm.
a higher being of some sort. Now, research from Dr. Raymond Moody, who was the first to coin the phrase near death experience,
Mm.
suggested that people across cultures have been reporting NDEs, such as seeing tunnels of light, seeing
Mhm.
loved ones, or
Mhm.
experiencing like a sense of overwhelming love and peace for years and years and years. There's been
Right.
theories, there are theories out there that this does sort of suggest that those experiences are typically caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, which of course
Mhm.
can trigger hallucinations. There have been other links as well about naturally occurring compounds known as DMT. Now, I'm going to embarrass myself trying to say this, so bear with me.
Okay, good luck on this one,
DMT,
chicken.
DMT is short for dimethyltryptamine, which is essentially a powerful psychedelic compound,
Say
and
that
it's
again.
found in dimethyltryptamine. It's a psychedelic
Dimethyltryptamine.
compound. Oh, thank you
Mm.
very much. You did it a lot
You're
better than
welcome.
I did. So it's a psychedelic compound found in various plants, animals, and also inside us humans as well. Now, it is typically known for producing intense and short-lived hallucinations, and it's often described as mystical and otherworldly. Now, some theories,
Ah.
some theories are out there that the brain releases a surge of DMT, or
Mhm.
dimethyltryptamine, during movements of like extreme stress or such as death, which could maybe explain some of the vivid and transcendental natures of NDE.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But of
Well,
course, like, there
so
are
basically,
scientific views and there are the spiritual as
yeah, there
well.
are. Well, some would argue that NDEs are purely neurological, and with MDT or other neurochemicals like serotonin and ketamine, like compounds, playing a role in producing the sensations that people report.
Hmm.
The spiritual view would be others that believe that NDEs are genuine glimpses of an afterlife,
Hmm.
and that the DMT may simply act as a gateway rather than a hallucinatory effect.
Mm.
So basically, what counts as a near death experience, NDE, you know, medical crises, accidents, dodging an ex or someone that you had a terrible date with in Tesco's, something like that. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like, do you remember that? Do you remember Poltergeist?
Hmm. Come to the
Come into
come to the
life.
TV. Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
turning my
Yeah.
favorite character of all time was, "This house is clean." You know? I think you would have got a lot of references back then when that movie came out, and we didn't have a clue what
Mm.
NDE was then, near death experiences and stuff. DMT sounds like a drug someone's taking at a nightclub or something.
It
Do you
actually
know what I
does.
mean?
It does sound like
Yeah.
a club drug or something like that. So
Oh
basically,
my
what
god.
you're saying is that you're
How
like
do
your
we get
heart.
some? How do we get some?
So basically, what you're saying is that when your heart stop, your head's like, cue the disco lights and give me a montage of my awkward teen years. And by the way, bring in my great 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 granny who I've never met before. It just happens
Exactly.
to be
You
standing at
know
the
what I
end of a tunnel.
'Cause they say your brain keeps buzzing after the heart's done. Do you know what I
Uh,
mean? So it's got like a spare battery for one last spin, and your brain's trolling you.
yeah,
Your
yeah.
very own brain is actually trolling. You're not dead yet, but here's a trailer of your life.
That's
You know what
exactly
I
it.
mean?
And like I said earlier, when I sort of fell in what felt like super slow motion, like I actually had a moment of like seeing my entire life flash before my very eyes.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
But
It's like
but like
skeptics
let's
would argue
discuss
that
this,
you're
right? Because as
yeah,
you know, I am forever a skeptic.
always.
And skeptics do argue that NDEs, or near death experiences, are just the brain's way of processing. If you are deprived of oxygen, you do have
Yeah.
you hallucinate the same way that if you're denied water, you start to have hallucinations. They talk about seeing mirages in the desert and all this kind of
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it could just be a symptom of your neural activity actually shutting down in your brain. But there are
Mm.
people out there that do say that like near death experiences, they actually feel. like realer than reality itself. Like they do take a real stance on it. What do you think about that? I mean, obviously you've not been in a position where you've had been starved of oxygen, have you?
No, I've never been starved of anything in my life. Do you know what I mean? I really haven't, but I just think like here's another way to look at it. Why a bright light?
Well, let me
Like
tell you.
because yes.
Let me tell you. I read a really random story about this, and it was like, do you know, like on Reddit, and there's all these blogs, and people are asking like the
Mm,
philosophical questions. This was one of them.
mhm.
Why do we see a bright light? Like,
Okay.
Tina, there is a theory out there that when you're
Oh,
dying,
this sounds very interesting.
the bright light that you actually see is the light of a theater room where you're
Mhm.
actually being born. So, in other words, what they're saying is that it's the light at the end of a lady's vagina, or a C-section if you were born C-section. But that's essentially like, and I thought,
What?
well, that was a really interesting take on it. Like, it literally could be that when you're dying, the reason why you feel so comfortable and peaceful is because it's
Mhm.
effectively life restarting.
Restarting so you come back to where you came from? Do you
Pretty much.
Yeah. So how common is it for people to see deceased relatives? Do they appear as younger versions of themselves? I mean, is there any proof of an afterlife or just a comforting hallucination? Do you know what I
You see,
mean?
I mean, I've heard stories of people seeing deceased relatives. This is why I was saying before,
Yeah.
like, I've heard people saying that they seen their nan, or they seen, a passed away relative, and
Yeah.
they were there holding their hands and telling them, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Or sorry to cut in. When you look at and I've seen this myself, and when someone's supposed to pass and they hang on and they hang on and they hang on, and it looks like they've already passed, and they hold on for like a day or two.
Mm,
And it's probably they're waiting either for a certain person to come to them till they sense they're in the room, because they say the last thing to go is your hearing.
yeah, yeah.
And once they get a sense of that person, and then they'll go or they'll slip away. Or you're just either too angry and too many bad things have happened, and you can't get rid of that aggravation in order for it to peacefully pass on. You
Yeah.
know, do you think that NDEs are proof of an afterlife, like a glimpse into something beyond our understanding, or just the last sparks of a dying brain?
I would say, again, the skeptic in me would probably just say
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
the last sparks of a dying brain. But that's
You
just. But
oh,
I know, and I mean, someday I will surprise you, and I will, I will believe
no, you
something. I
won't.
will have a bit of faith. I probably won't,
No,
but until a bit, until we have an actual, cold hard
proof.
reality,
Proof.
the
Yeah.
proof.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm always
Okay,
going to
so
favor the science side.
well, of course, because I mean, obviously that makes a lot of sense. But you know what I mean? Me being the ultimate fantasist and living in a bubble and in a dream world and loving a bit of drama,
Hmm.
and you see, like, I mean, in Emmerdale last week, they lost two of their main characters and they drowned and all this kind of sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And then, but when one of them went under the ice, there was a hand. There was another hand under
Hmm.
the ice. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because one of the characters in Emmerdale, she held on and she held on, and the loved ones were coming in to see her. And it's so funny that we're talking about this.
Hmm.
The timing of it to me is so good. And I often find myself looking and thinking, even though they're lying, they're playing that they're about to die as a character, how does that make you feel in real life? Because
Mm.
if you do it really, really well, I'm extremely superstitious, and if I know I'm already world famous, right? But if I was like starring alongside, say, Jennifer Lopez and Beyonce and a few of the other A-listers like myself, and they said, Tina, write you down this episode, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's actually funny because EastEnders also did their 40th year celebration last week,
Yes.
and it was the same idea. It was like they sort of had depicted Phil, who was contemplating, whether or not he wanted to be in the world, and then it
Mm,
was sort of like flashbacks to him when he was a kid, and then there
mm-hmm,
was another scene where the Vic had sort of been blown up, and Sharon, wasn't it
mm.
Sharon? And she had seen Angie Watts's character
Yeah.
had sort of came back. Anita
And
Dobson,
told
isn't
her
that what you call her?
Anita Dobson, Angie
Yeah,
Watts, and she was the end. You're not. I'm not ready for you.
Yeah.
You
So
you're not yeah.
so
The
there's
afterlife
this
played a massive role in that 40-year celebratory episode,
so the
and
the
I
the
just
depiction of, like, this kind of, like, dead relatives and stuff like that,
mhm,
it's everywhere, and that's kinda where
absolutely.
but the scientists of people are sort of saying, especially the likes of those people that believe in it from maybe a spiritual point of view, they've
Yeah.
been saying that the signs are everywhere. But the
Mm.
thing the thing that's interesting is everybody describes this tunnel and kind of like a bright light.
Yes.
And there's stories of people who are saying that they've been floating away towards this light,
Mhm.
and then there's been
Getting drawn into it, drawn
or,
into it.
or
Here
or a
here's a
hand of a
tunnel.
relative grabs them and
Yeah.
brings them back.
Here's a tunnel. Here's your great great granny, and she's in her curlers. Do you know, I would love to see them test it, the flatline for a second, and let's see if we get the glitter treatment. Do you know what I
To,
mean?
to be fair, Tina, I'm pretty sure that if you were in a floating tunnel, that you would be demanding a spotlight.
And red carpet. And red carpet, you know what I mean? I definitely would. I mean, it's great. So, I mean, I have to sit through all my bad outfit choices at once. Do you know what I mean? So, and I just find it all very, 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 very fascinating. I mean, I mean, is it religious versus scientific explanations? You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Is it brains on overdrive versus a real afterlife? I do
mhm.
believe there is an afterlife. I really, really do.
Yeah.
I just think that, and I think it gives people, it takes away from, there's a lot of people who I used to have a terrible fear of dying when I was younger, but not so much now. You know, I actually don't. Don't have a fear at all. I want to live like,
Mhm.
and I want to live a very good life. But this to me is fascinating. I love this.
Yeah.
This is, so. I mean, what are your what are your views on that? You know, like, is it religious versus scientific explanations, or you know, brains on overdrive versus a real afterlife? What do
Yeah,
you
you
think?
see, again, I'm always going to look for this. I'm always going to look for the proof, the scientific explanation. As I've said already, like I know that many religions speak of an afterlife. In
Hmm.
Christianity, they talk about heaven. In Norse mythology, there was Vikings who went to Valhalla.
Yeah,
So like it exists and it's existed for thousands of years, and perhaps it
right.
has been because people have been a lot closer to death, certainly in the olden times. Like there was
Yeah.
wars and people were always kind of exposed to near death events. But the other thing there is I read an article recently about, this is kind of a bit advanced, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but like there has been advancing quantum physics, which offers
Ah,
insights. So some theorists out there suggest that consciousness might exist outside the body and return to a universal energy field, like upon
right.
death. Now that's
Ah.
kind of like far flung, real sort of like scientific research, but again, that could sort of lead into, I guess, a belief for me that if there's real science out there being done, that perhaps maybe people who are saying that we're all energy and we go back to being energy once our life's been spent, that maybe that's a thing.
Mhm.
And if there's scientific research to support it, I'll jump on board 100%. What's your views, like, in all honesty? Like, I know that you've said that you're spiritual, you're
Mm.
maybe just not as religious, but you still have a belief and you still believe in a faith of some sort.
Yeah, I
What
do.
do
I
you
mean,
think?
personally, my take on it is, I just think that there is an afterlife. I do think that we all go somewhere, and
Mm,
it's either up or down,
mm,
and there is no in between.
yeah,
And, I do think we all need something to believe in.
yeah,
And if it's heaven, it's heaven, and if it isn't, it isn't.
yeah,
And it's like yourself, you're very skeptical, and you need proof, and you need receipts, and you need documentation,
yeah,
and not what you see on TVs and soaps is actually fact. It
yeah,
is quite fictional and it's pure fantasy. But what I also do believe that helps to ease up someone's conscience and fear, of this actually happening, because none of us know what's guaranteed. None of us know, the next 2 hours, the next day, the next week. So, create a kind of sort of a fantasy for yourself that suits you, your own narrative, and how you would grasp if you were taking there's your light. This is it.
hmm,
Caroline.
yeah.
Caroline, come into the light. Do you know what I mean? That I mean,
Yeah, no,
basically, go. It's up
no,
to
no,
you.
no, no. I was going to say no. I mean, 100%, and like that totally works. Like
Yeah.
I totally understand that from your viewpoint. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
it's and it goes back to your own held belief. But here's one
absolutely.
of the things: I did go out to all of our socials, and I asked people to get in touch.
Mhm.
And we've got a voice note from Louise, and
Oh.
she sent us a voice note basically where when she was younger, she had died on the operating table. So this is the clip.
Hi, I'm Louise. I had a death experience when I was 25. I had major surgery, and I can remember it was so surreal. I can remember that my name's actually Irene Louise, but I never answered the Irene. But I can remember this white light. It was like a tunnel of light, and it was heading up, but it was so quiet and peaceful and inviting. It was lovely. It was I can't explain it, but I was always frightened of dying. I was frightened of dying, but I can remember going into this light, this tunnel, and I wanted to go. I wanted to keep going into this tunnel to keep going up, but I was aware of they must have been working with me, and they were going. I could hear them going, "Come on, Irene, breathe, breathe." I didn't want to breathe. I just wanted to go in, and I don't answer to anything. Like I say, it's Louise I answer to, and so that didn't help them. But I just wanted to go into this light. I didn't want to answer, didn't want to come round. I just wanted to go to this light because it was so peaceful. But yeah, they brought me round, so they did, and they told me that I had died. They had to work with me on the operating theatre. But like I say, I was always frightened of dying. But from that moment on, I'm not frightened of dying. And if that's the way forward, if that's the way it goes, I haven't got a problem going because it was so peaceful. And and that was it. That was my experience of, I don't know, near death or dying, whatever. But yeah, I'm not frightened of dying now. So people believe it or don't believe it, but I did experience it. And like I say, it was the most peaceful feeling. So there you go. Thank you.
Wow. You see, I'm actually almost speechless because what the lady has just described is it took me many, many years to come to peace with passing. And what Louise went through in a moment turned all of that fear into a kind of a warmth because
Like an acceptance, isn't it?
yeah, like this is what it's going to be like, but you're just not ready yet. And I think what has triggered her not going was, see, if they had called her Irene, she wouldn't have woke up.
Yeah.
See, because they were calling her Louise, she was
Hmm.
in a mood and they were disturbing her peace.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think her heart started to go because she was annoyed. And then
Yeah.
we've got to beat, and that's why she's came back. That has just totally blown me away.
Yeah.
That and to say, no, if I knew I was going, she knows exactly when she closed her eyes where she's going.
Yeah.
That is remarkable. I mean, that white light, but like Louise knew she was headed toward pure peace forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eternal peace. Isn't that what they always say?
This is
Eternal
it.
peace.
It's such a common thing. Everybody
Yeah.
talks about the serenity of it, it being very peaceful, very calm and
And
warmth.
warmth,
Yeah. It's very
you know?
fascinating.
And
It's
so,
fascinating.
you know what? Some people see their long lost dead pets waiting.
That you know and you know what? So they do. Now here's a question for you, Tina.
Go.
Would you think Thumper would be waiting for you?
Oh,
Or
listen, he be waiting on me.
you think he wouldn't
He-
ghost you for a much richer or like a much richer owner or
No, because a much richer owner wouldn't let my thumper lie in bed beside him and fart all over him and lick the bake clean off him and getting up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, rock in the morning because he's a wee bit incontinent and he needs to go out the back and I have to
Uh-huh.
stand at the back door until he's finished doing what he has to do and then I come back in and then me and him get back into bed. Richard would just keep him downstairs and let him make a mess. Do you know what I mean? But see if
Nobody
he
look
did.
after him like you would.
See if he did, I'm telling you, I'd get no eternal peace. I'd be like, see you wee user.
What
Mhm.
if you had like a goldfish and it came back? Do you think that the goldfish would still need to be in water?
I'd probably go,
Would you not be
mhm.
absolutely raging of all the people that you would sort of see during your near death experience is your pet goldfish that, that that might have lived for a
I,
month or two?
I would be fuming. I would be absolutely. I listen. I really, really would. But I mean, even the thought of my thumper, like, oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't worry about me. But then I would worry if I did go before him. I'd be like, nobody loves him the way I love him. He doesn't, he would never be able to love anybody the way he loves me. Do you know what I mean? I
yeah,
suppose it
yeah,
comes with parenting and the guardian parent. Nobody will love their child or parent the way they love each other, kind of.
yeah,
And I guess
yeah.
that's this real, sad part of. But I would never have a goldfish anyway. I couldn't be normal. I
So
couldn't.
so what if, right? So let's
Okay, oh,
think.
here we go. Here
Let's
we go.
think. So we're on our way to a gig
Right, okay.
and we
Driving along. Beep,
we're
window
driving
down.
along and we end up in a ditch, and we don't die, but it's a near death experience. How do you see your near death experience playing out?
Um,
Well, I'll start. I think I would probably see that kind of like what talking about, people that you kind of know, like sort of like that sort of white light, and you're sort of. I imagine in my head that I will probably end up in some sort of room with a white bright
Glenn,
light.
I'm not
That
being funny, but I swear, see your screen. It's like there's a spirit around you. Your
no.
screen. Listen to me. Do you see just at this moment that you're talking about the car accident?
Mhm.
I swear, you look back at this, your screen, man.
Oh,
You
interesting.
very much so. I've never seen
My
it do
God,
that before.
it's like an episode of Final Destination. But
Go.
back to what I was saying.
Right.
I imagine
Okay.
that if
Yeah, we're in a car crash.
we're
Thanks.
in a car crash, and if I imagine that if I was having a proper near death experience, that I would probably
Mhm.
end up in some celestial queue system where I'd be organizing people properly and like, right, you over here, come on, get this done, get that done.
Mhm. You would definitely that would be you. There's 2 things I would be thinking about. Number 1 is, do we get paid? And the other one, I hope it's on the way back rather than on the way down, because at least we'll have had an absolute ball. Do you know what I mean? And we got a bit of wage. I
Yes.
get turned away from the gates of heaven for causing too much drama at the pearly gates. Peter Peter will be standing there with a big book going, "Tina, now come on, love." And
Not the
I
day,
Peter and
love.
I was like, "Tina, they I know you weren't ready for me, Peter, but wait I tell you something, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Glenn was driving, he's behind me. There's 372 million souls and they're all messed up. He'll be here and wait, give him 2 years. He's just sorting everybody out for you, love. Don't you worry about it.
True.
He'll have their dates of birth, their names, when they passed away, where they were, and he'll have them all on their
Have them on an
tablets.
iPad or something.
Have them all in it. Yeah, and they'll all walk in and they'll just show it to you. And do you know what he'll actually do? He'll create a code, you can scan it.
A QR code.
A
Just say,
QR code with the fingerprints just to make sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
talked about it earlier. Let's talk about
Yeah.
guardian angels, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
I
I love
I
this.
imagine genuinely that if I had a guardian angel, it would
Mm.
probably be like like an exhausted coworker or something, like an exhausted office worker who'd be like
Run.
frantically flipping through like a giant book, like trying
Yeah.
to keep me out of trouble. Like, really, do you know what I mean? Like, I'd always be up to something. What about you?
I know in my heart my guardian angel is my granny Bose,
Oh, okay.
and that's my mummy's mummy.
Mhm.
And my granny Bose died when she was 43 of tuberculosis, back when it was a big killer back in the day. She was only 43,
Oh, wow.
and mummy was only 17. And mummy and all had left home. And my mummy was on a bike,
Mhm.
and she was just about to leave Dublin Airport, and she was going to Tour France on her own. She
Mhm.
was only 17.
Wow.
And then they got to her and said, "You have to go back. Your mum's very ill in hospital." And poor Granny Bose died. And I always used to say to my mummy when I was little about a lady. And mummy used to ask me to describe her, and my mummy used to go, "That's your Granny Bose."
Oh,
Never
wow.
frightened me, never made me feel weird, never made me. I always felt this presence.
Mhm.
I could always sense this presence, and that's just a gospel truth. And that's why I'm very spiritual. That's why I go to chapel about 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
That's why I believe in the power of prayer, because every time when we do a big show and it's all the girlies together, you've walked in many a time to ask us, are we ready? And because we're not answering the phone, we're standing in a circle holding hands, and I would say the prayer.
Yeah.
Because I just, that's just the way I am. That's just the way I do believe in all the, like, guardian angels are really lovely.
But they do say
They're
that
like
kids
fairies.
they do say that kids and animals like are very sensitive to those kind of things. Kids always talk
Yes.
about seeing somebody, and whether it's an overactive imagination or
Mm-hmm.
perhaps maybe they're sensing something, and it goes back
Mm-hmm.
to that thing I was saying earlier on about maybe it is a big ball of energy and you're more susceptible to those things when you're younger, who knows? Or
Of
if you're
course.
an animal. But here, do you think, right? So you mentioned there
Mm-hmm.
about your granny and stuff like that, but do you
Mm-hmm.
think that your guardian angel gets assigned based on like your personality, or do you think that maybe it's just like a celestial lucky dip?
I don't think it's either of those. I think basically what happens is, I think the guardian angel chooses the person that they want to protect.
Hmm.
I think they may, obviously, because when they're in spirit, they will know who's a very good person, and they can nurture and keep that person safe
Hmm.
and keep them away from harm's reach and keep them away from, you know, a destructive kind of sort of existence where you have that inner kind of sort of peace and protection. I always, but I mean, it's so, it was so rewarding sometimes, because I used to feel certain things when I was going the wrong way, and I'd go, "Oh no, I'm not doing that." My instinct is on flick, and I call my instinct my granny Bose.
Hmm.
And when something doesn't feel right to me, or something doesn't feel good to me, or something's not safe, and I feel that, I go, "No, no, no," plain and simple. And then I look at my life today and I think it's my granny Bose,
Hmm.
because I'm not afraid to say no. Do you know what I mean? And I just
Yeah.
think a guardian angel will pick the right one. I believe you have a guardian angel. You just will not believe it.
Yeah.
I believe you do.
Do you think, though, this is a question I like to answer, I'd like to hear your opinion on, but do you think they sort of hang around like all of the time? Like, do you think that they follow you when you go to the toilet or when you're like doing the deed? I mean, because I've been in some questionable bars over the years.
Oh no, listen. I've been in certain situations myself, and I would think, Granny Bose, you may turn a blind eye, love. You know, I think they're only with. I think that they kind of, they're out there somewhere. They're in the
The
beautiful
ether.
piece, the
Yeah.
ether.
Yeah.
And when they feel that the person that they're protecting or looking out for, that there's danger ahead, that's when your instinct kicks in. That's when you're in the wrong place, but not necessarily at the wrong time, because we all can make a choice. Even split second decisions can save your life.
Mhm.
You, you know, don't turn left, someone makes you turn right. You often hear people saying, "I don't know what made me go that way." Whereas if I had been that way, I would have been dead. Do you understand those kind of scenarios?
So
Here,
it's kinda
tell
like
me this.
they turn up when you most when you need them the most
Yes,
is what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, I get
yes,
that.
yes, yes. Here, what if your guardian angel is a fed up great granny constantly face palming your life choices?
Well well, I mean, I've made many life choices that would be face palming, let me tell you. But, who knows? I honestly, I'm not sure. Not sure who my guardian angel might be.
And like, people who have died and come back with a new purpose in life.
Yeah, so I've read a number of stories
Do you
about
believe
this, but
that?
Well, let's look at it from this point of view. So
Okay.
the listener Louise mentioned that and you'd already commented on it, like that
Mhm.
she had spent most of her life fearing death, then had a near death experience, and then is no longer afraid. So there's definitely something to be said about it. Like it changes your mindset,
Oh,
especially if you
absolutely.
kind of know what to expect. Do you know that way? Like I
Yeah.
talked about my mass anxiety when I went for my hair transplant and how I got myself like I got myself so worked up, had the transplant, and then now I'm like, what was it all about? So I
Yeah.
think once you kind of know, do you know that way, and then it
Yeah, yeah,
allows
yeah.
you to make a more informed decision. But there's been cases out there, like there was, I think the most famous one that I read about was Anita Murjani. She had a near death experience. This is a woman who claimed to be healed from terminal cancer after
Oh,
having like an intense out of body state. So, like there's I think history is littered with examples of where people have
yeah.
done things following near death experience, but it can't maybe really just justify it.
I have heard of some people in the past, people who I know of, and they've been diagnosed with cancer and it's terminal. And this whole Lourdes, holy water kind
Mhm.
of sort of thing. I mean, I do believe in all of that. I really, really do. Because I've always believed in the power of prayer.
Yeah,
I've always believed, but never force it on anyone. You know, when anybody new comes along to try one of the shows, I will always say to them, "Listen, I'm going to do a wee prayer in about 5 minutes. You don't have to take part, but you're more than welcome to if you want." It's not a religious thing. It's just for the power of prayer.
yeah,
Because, you know, in that, I don't know. I love to believe in miracles.
mhm,
I do believe miracles do exist, you know. And I think when you lean to one another and people say, "Oh, Tina, say we prayer for us," you know what I mean? We get a flutter out of that because
yeah.
people know that I believe in prayer and is there an afterlife? And I do think, you know,
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like, I mean, so based on what we talked about today,
yeah,
so the moral of the story is this: live well,
yeah.
just in case you get the life review. Do you know what I mean?
And wear clean socks in case your granny's waiting on you.
Exactly. We are running out of time, but we do have we've got a listener question. So let's do
Oh,
sip and share.
oh yes, that's how we sip and share.
Sip and share.
So we have a wee question, a wee message from a beautiful one of our listeners, Patricia Malloy. Hello, Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Patsy. Hi, chicas. Patricia writes, I'm in my 50s and felt that I was quite liberal, but more recently I felt like quite anxious dealing with people's pronouns. I don't want to say the wrong thing and offend anybody. What's the best way to handle this?
Okay, well we've brought this up a couple of times.
Yeah,
I mean, I think before we get into it, I think let's what does the research say? Why is pronouns important? So there's mental health benefits. So,
yeah.
using people's correct pronouns, it helps reduce depression, risk of suicide, particularly amongst transgender people or gender diverse individuals. And
Mm-hmm.
misgendering people can cause distress and invalidation. But there's also been like this linguistic and social shift. Studies
Right.
show that they, them pronouns and that the pronoun usage is shaped both by language and personal beliefs. Also,
Ah,
workplace inclusivity is a big thing, education and safe spaces, but it has just a broader societal impact. So, like, respect and pronouns, it can foster inclusivity, acknowledges diverse gender identities, and it also contributes to overall mental well being. But
mm-hmm.
if someone is struggling to get someone's pronouns right, I think we could probably give a couple of of some practical tips. Tina, what do you reckon?
Right. Acknowledge and commit. Accept that mistakes happen, but
Absolutely.
commit to improving.
Yeah.
Also, understanding using correct pronouns shows respect and support.
Yeah.
You know, practice and repetition. Repeat the correct pronouns in your head or say them out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try using the person's name instead of pronouns while you adjust.
Yeah. I
And
find
right
that one
set.
I actually
Yeah,
find that one very useful.
that was a very close friend of mine who was transitioning and then transitioned, and I've known this person for a very, very long time. Before we met, I used to say the name in my head 20 times,
Hmm.
and then I said it like, repeatedly
Yeah.
so that I didn't want to make the mistake to insult.
Yeah.
And people are only human.
Yeah.
People are only human, you know. That try using the person's name instead of pronouns while you adjust. And also write sentences using their pronouns to reinforce memory.
Yeah.
You know, and look, if you get it wrong, just apologize briefly and then move on. See if you make a wee mistake, correct yourself and continue.
Yeah.
He said, oh, sorry, she said she'd be there at 5. Over apologizing can make the other person uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think
Just,
that's it. I think that's
yeah.
it's totally, and you know, up to above all else, ask.
Mhm.
Just ask when you're
Yes.
unsure. Like,
Yes.
just say if you're uncertain. I've been in situations before, particularly in bars. So, an example,
Mm.
we were in Union Street one time, and there was a member of staff there, and I heard another member of the team refer to a person as she, but they were
Mhm.
male presenting, and I was a little bit confused, going, "Oh, have I been sort of, you know, given them male pronouns, but actually they're female?" So I
Yeah.
said, you know, "Can I ask what are your pronouns?" And the person went, "Oh, he, him, you know, his." And I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's okay." And I explained why.
Yep.
But if you forget, just say, "Can you remind me of your pronouns again?" Like, it's
Yep.
like, you have the conversation. The other thing that I find particularly helpful as well is an accountability buddy. So if you're in
Ah,
a group setting,
yes.
say to a friend, "Can you gently correct me if I slip up?" Like, really
Yep.
simple. And then
Yep.
just listen and learn from others who get it right as well. Or the
Excellent.
one that I think people struggle with the most, and I really struggle with this,
Me too.
it is the gender neutral language.
Yeah.
So, like, I especially whenever we're starting gigs, I really try my hardest to avoid ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Instead, now what I do is I just say the venue. You know, we were at Crumlin Road. Rather than go ladies and gentlemen, I would say Crumlin Road, make some noise for. And
Yep.
it just removes, it's very inclusive. The other one, though, is the their pronoun. And especially trying to use that in a sentence when you're talking
Yes.
about somebody, it really,
Yeah.
I really struggled with that, you know? I really did.
Uh-huh. Well, look, just be patient with yourself. Everybody out there who's listening to this, and I hope this comes as a real, you know, a real help. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone like me or Glenn or someone and say, look, I find this a wee bit conflicting, confusing. I don't want to hurt anybody. How do I approach this? Don't be afraid to talk about it. You know what I mean? Get yourself the wee accountability buddy who knows of these things, you know, and be patient with yourself. Change takes time, but consistently with help, it becomes natural.
Yeah.
And the effort matters. People appreciate genuine attempts to respect their identity.
100%. 100%. You've made the effort. If you're still confused about it, you know, at least you've taken interest, you know, that way.
Exactly. So, Patricia, thank you very much for that question. That was absolute dynamite, young lady.
Yes, thank you so much for that,
That's a
Patricia.
that's to say up our way. That one was Beezer. That was that one was Beezer.
But look,
So let's
that
see
is
here.
sadly all we've got time for.
No.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Now, if you don't want to make it to next week's episode, just know that I'm probably haunting you all in a very stylish, cheap way.
Yeah, so next week we have our One for the Road episode. As
One for
always,
the road. Thank you,
cannot
listeners.
thank
Thank
you
you, thank you,
enough.
thank you. We love you. We love you. We love you. Please, please rate us. Send us in your stories. Get in contact with us if you want to listen to all our sips and giggles, you know, especially our Patreons who will get an extra episode called the G&T Sips and Giggles Lock-In.
It's explosive. We've never said that before.
I know. Patreon members, we're gonna have a lock-in.
Yes, so
And
just to explain what's going to happen here, Tina and I are now going to put out an additional episode just exclusively for our Patreons. So if you're not a Patreon, head on over there. Memberships start from free. Paid memberships start from £3, £4, £5 a month, and you get access to exclusive benefits like these episodes, which aren't available anywhere else. But Legsy, until next time, chin
Chin chin.
chin. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of G&T Sips and Giggles. If you've enjoyed our conversation, then don't forget to share it with your friends, and why not subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Your reviews mean the world to us and really help others find the show, so please take a moment to leave one. But be kind. If you'd like to support the podcast, why not consider joining us on Patreon? For the cost of a drink a month, you can listen to episodes early, access exclusive digital content, and get discounts to upcoming G&T shows. Your support helps us keep the conversation flowing. Cheers, we'll see you next time. Chin chin.